What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Here we are with another reaction video, and in this one we have how Poland is quickly becoming the richest country in the world. Poland's economy explained. Before we dive into this video, if you guys have it to enjoy, please don't forget to smash that subscribe button, give a video a thumbs up, and let's dive right in.
This is the city of Warsaw in Poland. Just a few decades ago, it was a poor and run-down city with a real GDP per capita that was comparable to some modern-day African nations like Cameroon or Senegal. Yet today, Warsaw is thriving. And Poland's real GDP per capita as a whole is comparable to nations like Japan and South Korea. And potentially within the next 5 years, Poland may catch up to the richest nations in Europe like Germany, Sweden, the UK, and Denmark. But how is this happening? How did Poland go from one of the poorest nations in the world 30 years ago to becoming one of the economic hubs of Europe today, and how it potentially might become the richest country in all of Europe? Well, let's start off with Poland in the 1990s, a place where optimism and economic opportunity were about as plentiful as snow in July. After shaking off the chains of communism and leaving the Soviet bloc in 1989, Poland looked around and realized it was in a bit of a bind. Decades of centralized planning had left the country economically underdeveloped, burdened with outdated industries and with a GDP per capita that was frankly embarrassing compared to its Western neighbors. Imagine coming to a party where everyone got champagne and you're stuck with a cup of tap water. That was Poland in the 1990s. So what's a freshly democratic country to do? Well, enter shock therapy. That's right, Poland decided to jump headfirst into economic liberalization, privatization, and cue, drumroll please, capitalism. The Balcerowicz plan, named after Leszek Balcerowicz, Poland's very own free market crusader, was like an extreme makeover for the economy. This plan rapidly liberalized prices, opened up trade, and surprise, dismantled the clunky state-owned industries that had somehow survived communism. It was a little like ripping off a Band-Aid if that Band-Aid covered an entire country. Did it work? Sort of. I mean, sure, the country's GDP fell by 7.6% in 1990, and unemployment skyrocketed. Poland had gone from a rigid state-run economy to the Wild West of capitalism. But
you know what they say? It has to get worse before it gets better. When you're already falling to rock bottom, sometimes you gotta hit rock bottom before you come up. And it sounds like because due to communism and due to being under Soviet occupation, Poland was already on that downfall, and they were falling fast. They were almost at the bottom. So what they had to do, what this plan was, to hit rock bottom and then climb our way back up. But it had to get worse before it got better. And to think about in the 90s where Poland's economy was absolutely awful and terrible, for them to bounce back so quickly and to now be one of the I guess, richest countries in Europe and on your way to become that #1 spot, and give it a little bit more time from what I'm hearing. To bounce back like that is truly, truly something special, truly phenomenal. But it's Poland. These people are absolutely resilient. These people are fighters. These people are going to figure it out. They're going to figure it out.
While people were figuring out how to survive this economic roller coaster, Poland was laying the groundwork for future success. Cities like Warsaw, Krakow, and Gdansk tried their best to transform themselves from drab Soviet-influenced industrial hubs into places where businesses might actually want to invest. Somehow, the word here is tried, because it took a while. Foreign investors weren't exactly banging down the door because, well, who wanted to invest in a country that just learned what a stock exchange was? And let's not forget the companies that rose from the ashes. Orion, now one of the largest oil refiners in Central Europe, was a small player in the 1990s, navigating the chaotic post-communist business landscape. Then you had companies like KGHM, the copper mining giant, which had to figure out how to survive in this brave new world where they could no longer rely on government handouts. No pressure. But the government did have a plan, or at least something that resembled one. By the mid-1990s, Poland was on its way to joining the European Union, because let's be real, that was where the money was at the time. The EU waved the carrot of future membership, and Poland, hungry for the benefits of the European integration, started cleaning up its act. This meant new regulations, adopting EU standards, and most importantly, fiscal responsibility, or at least as much as a country emerging from decades of economic mismanagement could muster. Yeah. So yes, Poland in the 1990s was not exactly the poster child for economic success, but it was laying the foundation for the future. By the end of the decade, Poland's GDP was starting to grow, hitting around 155 billion by the year 2000. The unemployment rate, well, that was still high at around 16%, but hey, it was a work in progress. Yeah. And if you squinted really, really hard, you might almost be able to see a glimmer of the future economic growth that was on the horizon. But as we fast forward into the
It's like, dang, 16% unemployment rate is very high. Sheesh. But they saw that light at the end of the tunnel. You might have to squint to see it. But there was a light down there at the end of the tunnel. And they were on the right path. They just had to get through this terrible part first. But then joining the European Union, it sounds like, also helped. And then these companies that were not even players in the 90s, or tiny players, it sounds like these companies figured it out in a new system. Poland did what Poland does, and that's figure it out. Did a great job of it.
2000s, Poland was finally looking like it was starting to get its act together. Remember that awkward teenager from the 1990s? Well, they grew up, got a decent haircut, and maybe even learned how to walk without tripping. Poland's economy, once the punchline of jokes, was suddenly on the rise, and the world started to take notice. The year 2004 was a big one. Poland joined the European Union. Cue the champagne, or at least a nice cup of tea. So now being part of the EU meant a couple of very important things. Access to the single market, and wait for it, billions of dollars and euros in development funds. Poland was like a kid handed a blank check and told, go have fun. And boy, did they ever. The country used these funds to overhaul its infrastructure, rebuild its highways, and modernize its cities. Warsaw began its transformation from a concrete jungle left over from the Soviet urban planning into a shiny financial hub. Even Krakow, with its historical charm, started to feel like a tech-friendly startup haven. But the real magic came after the mid-2000s, between 2005 and 2014. Poland was like that overachiever who suddenly decides to get straight A's. GDP growth averaged a solid 4 to 5% annually during this period. Poland was growing faster than most of Europe because while the old Western economies were busy figuring out how to recover from the financial crisis of 2008, Poland didn't even fall into recession. That's right, in 2009, while most of the continent was drowning in negative growth, Poland was over here flexing with a 1.6 GDP growth rate. It was the only EU country to avoid the economic meltdown, which earned it the title of Europe's Green Island. And this wasn't just luck. Poland had some heavy hitters making it happen. Companies like PKN Orlen, which had evolved into a massive energy titan, KGHM, which was still mining away at the sweet copper, and new players like CD Projekt were also emerging. And yes, CD Projekt, that last one, those were the creators of The Witcher video game series. Poland wasn't just digging stuff out of the ground anymore. It was now producing world-class video games that were making billions and putting Poland on the tech map. CD Projekt's success with The Witcher 3 alone was enough to make Silicon Valley glance eastward in surprise. Then there was Poland's burgeoning auto industry. Cities like Poznan and Wrocław became hubs for car manufacturing, with international giants like Volkswagen and Fiat setting up shop. In fact, by 2019, Poland was producing over 500,000 vehicles annually. And if you needed a home appliance in Europe, chances were good it was stamped Made in Poland, since companies like Amica and BSH cranked out refrigerators, washing machines, and dishwashers faster than people could buy them. But wait, there's more.
While everybody was suffering, while everybody was suffering and going through a decline when the financial crisis hit, Poland didn't feel that. Poland said we ain't going through a recession. Our GDP is actually growing while everybody else is reclining right now. Is in negative growth. We actually showing positive growth, and that's because of the heavy hitters over there. Business started booming. People started looking at Poland like, "Hey, that's a great place to invest in. Like that, let's throw some money over there." Joining the EU sounds like absolutely helped them out big time, and they were able to start developing and doing more with infrastructure, which is absolutely incredible. But then these companies, it sounds like they just started blowing up, doing big things, making big money, and putting big money back into the economy. So take notes, world. Poland know how to get it done even at the worst of times.
Special economic zones became Poland's favorite trick in the book. The government set up these zones to attract foreign investment with tax incentives, and it worked like a charm. Major international players from Dell to LG decided that Poland was the place to be. By 2019, foreign direct investment had ballooned to over $200 billion. Not bad for a country that just a couple of decades prior was wondering how it was going to pay its bills. Infrastructure projects? Oh, there were plenty. Poland took that sweet EU money and poured it into shiny new highways, airports, and public transportation systems. The A2 motorway connecting Warsaw to Berlin was a game changer for logistics and trade. The Baltic port of Gdansk transformed into one of the most important ports in Europe, handling millions of tons of cargo every single year. And let's not forget Warsaw's new metro lines, which, shocker, actually got built on time and within budget. Whoa, I wouldn't know anything about that. I'm Canadian. By the 2010s, Poland wasn't just playing catch-up with the West, it was becoming a serious contender. Its GDP climbed steadily, surpassing $500 billion by 2020. Its real GDP per capita, once a depressing figure, had risen to around $30,000. Now that's not quite Germany levels, but when you start from the bottom, it's still impressive. And speaking of GDP, exports became Poland's bread and butter. Goods and services exports jumped to over $200 billion by 2019, with the machinery, furniture, and automotive parts leading the way. Unemployment? Oh, that pesky problem that had plagued Poland since the 1990s. Well, by 2019, it had dropped to 3.3%. Yes, you read that right. Poland had more or less figured out how to get its people working. Not bad for a country that once flirted with an unemployment rate consistently at around 20%. Of course,
crazy.
No story of Poland's economic miracle would be complete without mentioning its regional influence. By the mid-2010s, Poland had solidified its position as the leader of the Visegrad Four, a group of Central European countries that banded together to push their economic and political interests. Poland was no longer the scrappy underdog, it was the top dog in a fast-growing region. By the end of the 2010s, Poland was sitting pretty. It had weathered the global financial storm, attracted the tidal wave of foreign investment, and modernized its economy at breakneck speed. The days of
Poland was living good. They living large. They said we made it through the hard times. We made it through the suffering. We made it through the unemployment. We made it through the low GDP. We made it through people, foreign investors not wanting to look over here and make investments. We made it through it all. We're from 20% unemployment to 3.3. That's gorgeous, right? We went from very little money in foreign investment to over 200 billion. We went from crappy highways and terrible public transport to beautiful built roads and incredible public transport. You know what I'm saying? Poland may have spent all that money that they were getting very quickly, but they were investing it. It wasn't spending, it was investing. Poland was investing in itself and becoming such an incredible place for other countries to say, you know what, and giving those incentives for other countries. Hey, let's put our company in Poland. You know what I'm saying? And foreign investments started rolling in, and Poland just became better and better. And the unemployed, they got their people working. 3.3% unemployment, amazing. They just figured it out. They just figured it out. Shout out Poland, man. True
being the
underdog
EU's
story.
poor cousin were behind it, and if the rest of Europe hadn't noticed yet, well, they were about to, because Poland was just getting started. So we're in the 2020s and Poland's economic train just keeps chugging along, faster and faster with no signs of slowing down. If the first 2 decades of the new millennium were Poland's growth spurt, the next ones are shaping up to be its full-blown glow-up. In fact, Poland's got its eye on becoming one of Europe's economic powerhouses. No, seriously, Germany, France, you might want to keep an eye on Poland. Because let's start with some big, shiny numbers. In 2024, Poland's GDP is projected to hit close to $900 billion, and it's likely to cross the $1 trillion mark before too long.
Dang.
Yes, you read that right as well. Poland, a $1 trillion economy. Not too shabby for a country that just 30 years ago was trying to figure out how to function as a market economy.
Yeah.
And well, Poland's real GDP per capita is hovering at around $46,000 this year, meaning that Poland's economy might be growing at its fastest rate since the 1990s. So what's driving all of this? Well, a few things, actually. Poland's industrial sector is still going strong, especially in areas like automotive parts, machinery, and chemicals. And let's not forget the tech industry, which is becoming one of Poland's crown jewels. Krakow, Wrocław, and Warsaw have transformed into thriving tech hubs, attracting international companies that want to tap into Poland's highly skilled and relatively affordable labor force. Software developers and engineers have become Poland's new export, working for global companies like Google, Microsoft, and of course, CD Projekt. Poland's tech sector is already worth over $12 billion, and it's growing faster than your social media feed during a political scandal. Now, we've mentioned that Poland has become one of Europe's key manufacturing sectors, but its share of the European economy is no joke. By 2023, it was accounting for over 4% of the EU's total exports, with goods like machinery, furniture, and electronics leading the way. Poland has quietly become the second largest furniture exporter in the world, right behind China. IKEA should probably send a thank you card to Poland for making all of their stuff. And then there's energy. Poland has been historically reliant on coal. Really reliant on coal, actually. But that is changing. The country has made some ambitious moves towards renewable energy, aiming for 23% of its energy to come from renewables by 2030. It's not the most aggressive target, but given that Poland was once the coal king of Europe, it's a step in the right direction. Offshore wind project.
It sounds like, I trust Poland definitely to be in the right direction, definitely to go down the right path, because look what they've already done. Look what they've already figured out. So with renewable energy, it might not be ambitious plans, but Poland's one thing they're gonna do is they're gonna figure it out, because that's what they do. When war was at their door, when they were under occupation, when they had disappeared off the map, when everything went wrong for them, Poland kept fighting. Poland figured it out. When they got rid of this, or when they got rid of communism, when they beat the Soviets back, and their economy was absolutely awful, that Poland figured it out. I'm learning there's a pattern here. It's what they do.
Projects in the Baltic Sea, solar farms, and even some shiny new nuclear power plants are in the works. Poland might just turn into a green energy player before anyone ever would have thought possible. Now let's talk about Warsaw specifically, the country's economic engine. The capital has become one of the most dynamic financial centers in the entire world. Poland's Warsaw Stock Exchange is now the largest in the entire region, hosting over 400 companies with a market capitalization of more than $300 billion. So when you hear about Poland's financial sector booming, know that a lot of it is happening right here in the heart of Warsaw, in the shadow of the ever-growing skyline filled with glass towers and swanky office spaces. Now, looking forward, Poland is set to keep pushing its boundaries. The country's leadership has a bold vision, or maybe just a huge ego, depends on how you look at it, to reach the economical level of France and Germany by 2040 or sooner. Ambitious? Absolutely. Impossible? Well, not really. Stranger things have happened. With annual GDP growth rates projected to hover at around 3 to 6%, Poland could very well get there, especially if it continues to attract foreign investment like a magnet. Poland's solid position as a regional logistics hub, thanks to its central location and well-developed transport infrastructure, helps as well. Oh, and let's not forget about the Solidarity Transport Hub, the massive $10 billion infrastructure project
crazy.
That's set to...
And we reacted to the video on that one, bro. That'd be absolutely insane. It'd be so freaking incredible.
Become one of Europe's biggest airports. Because when you're trying to become an economic giant, you obviously need an airport to match. Poland's future economic strength isn't just about industry and tech, because the country's agriculture sector is also surprisingly strong, producing vast quantities of fruits, vegetables, and meat for European markets. Poland has somehow managed to maintain its status as one of Europe's breadbaskets, supplying everything from apples — yes, Poland is the largest apple exporter in the European Union — to poultry. And in case you were wondering, that chicken breast you bought on discount from your local supermarket, there's a decent chance if you're in Europe, it was raised in a Polish farm. Now let's address the elephant in the room, which is the labor market. Poland has one of the lowest unemployment rates in all of Europe, but there's a catch. The population is aging, and by 2050, the country will be facing a serious demographic crunch. Fewer young people means fewer workers, which could eventually slow down Poland's economic growth. But for now, the government is tackling this by opening its doors to other workers from all across Europe. Because who needs to make babies when you've got a steady flow of skilled labor right next door? In conclusion, Poland is no longer just the scrappy underdog of the European economy. It's now the frontrunner of Central Europe and a rising star on the continent. With its diverse and growing economy, ambitious infrastructure projects, and strong exports, Poland is well on its way to becoming an economic powerhouse. Will it end up dethroning a country like Germany anytime soon as the king economy of Europe? Well, probably not in the next few years, but over the next few decades, you never know. But Poland is a country to keep a close eye on in terms of rising superpowers, not just in Europe, but in the world. So thanks for watching, and just so you know, I'm launching 2 other channels, and I'm actually going to be posting a lot of videos on there, maybe a few times a week on both of those channels. They're in this kind of format that I do on this channel, but they are just on different genres. So please check those out. Click on the links down below if you want to see those. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on my other channels pretty soon. Thank you.
Shout out Poland. Y'all doing the dang thing. Yeah, it seems like y'all are definitely gonna be one of those top top economies in Europe. It seems like y'all are already there, but you guys are continuing to rise, and you're not done yet. You're still building upon it. So I can't wait to continue to see what you guys do, and how far you guys go. That's all we got for this. If you guys enjoyed, please don't forget to subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and check out that next video. See you guys next time.